Greetings and peace be upon you from God, the Father, and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. In this video, I'd like to explain what sports and physical activities Christians can and can't do. I've often heard people ask, can Christians do this or can Christians do that? How far can I go in this before it's a sin? I want you guys to understand that the goal of Christianity is to adopt the mind of God, to think how He thinks, to see as He sees, to judge as He judges. Praying, meditating, and reading are all essential to achieving this goal. When you see God as a Father who you want to imitate and become like, you start to change your heart and mindset. You no longer think, what can I get away with? As a disobedient child sees their father, or as a servant sees their master. But you think, how can I be like my Father who is perfect? Our Father is perfect and we must be perfect as well. In order to achieve this, you must see God's will and law as good and perfect, something made for our benefit and not for our hurt. God's law is not something to be resented, but embraced, because there is no better system. God's law is life-giving and leads to life. Any other law is either God's law mixed with human reasoning, and thus only partially good, or is just straight up evil. All this to say that it's a bad mindset to see how far you can push the boundaries before you go too far. This is the attitude of someone lacking zeal and understanding, to stay barely within the boundaries and always wanting to step outside. No, true Christians must be far away from the boundaries and must strive to be perfectly in the center, joyfully obeying the law and eagerly seeking to do as much good as they can. Don't ask, what's the minimum I need to do? Rather ask, how much can I do before I give out? Instead of needing to ask someone about every little thing you can or can't do, you want to strive to think like God so you know the answer for yourself. God created the human body, and there's nothing inherently sinful in moving around, doing work, and engaging in recreational physical activities.
Bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness is profitable for all things. For men to prefer gymnastic exercises to the baths is perhaps not bad, for such exercises are in some respects conducive to the health of young men.
So running and playing ball is fun and beneficial for our health. Satan gets to work. How can I corrupt this? First of all, let's create sports and activities that are inherently about killing and injuring other men. Let's create gladiatorial games and a circus. Now when I say circus, I'm referring to the Roman circus, where riders would race their chariots in very dangerous exhibitions where injury and death are almost guaranteed. So just like that, Satan has turned physical activities into an avenue for bloodshed. And not only are the participants injured, but the audience learns to lust after spectacles where men lose life and limb, thereby defiling their souls and actually cheering to see the image of God being torn apart.
And the boxers meet in single combat, for no reason whatever. Are such exhibitions to your credit? He who is chief among you collects a legion of blood-stained murderers, gladiators, engaging to maintain them. And he who misses the murderous exhibition is grieved, for he was not doomed to be a spectator of wicked, impious, and abominable deeds.
And then you add in the fact that all these events are done in the service of demon worship, and it becomes an utterly depraved, inhuman, ungodly state of affairs. Okay, so we don't want to kill anyone. What about football and martial arts? Can I punch another man in the face if we don't want to kill each other, and if we wear protection, and if we are just having a friendly sparring match? Guys, you need to recognize when you've hit the wall, and your flesh and mind try to find a way to get around that wall. Christianity tells us that man is made in the image of God. Do you really need to ask if it's okay to attack that image, even in a fake battle? If you're asking if you can engage in mock fights, then you need to take a step back and ask why you still want to engage in fights. There is still a part of you that has not embraced peace and still wants to fight, and you desperately want to hold on to that part.
But what if we wear armor? What if we're just having a friendly contest? What if we don't really want to kill each other?
Here's something you can imagine if you ever have a question regarding whether you can or can't do something. Imagine Adam and Eve in the garden. Can you imagine Adam and Eve boxing in the garden? Can you imagine Adam and Eve fighting in the gladiatorial games? Can you imagine Adam and Eve tackling each other to grab a ball? Football is a violent sport where men slam into each other, causing broken bodies and brain damage.
Hey, bro, I feel a headbutt coming on. It's headbutt time. Bro, do it.
Oh, bro, my head. Bro, why do we do that? Oh, what, my head? Bro, is your phone ringing or is it my head, bro? I can't think anymore, bro. I can't think. I'm just gonna walk, bro. I'm just gonna walk straight. Okay, I can still walk. Good.
Bro, let's never do that again.
Meanwhile, in the human kingdom.
You're all wondering why is there You're all wondering why is there a 45-year-old man wearing a football helmet around this goat farm? Well, that's easy. Because today, Ringo and I will demonstrate the art of the headbutt. Is that all? Come on. Is that all? Oh, you're getting weak, bro.
Bro, do it.
You see, it's my opinion that every YMCA middle and high school coach should invest in a good billy goat. I mean, think about it. There's no other way to teach your athletes the art of administering and taking a head blow and at all costs avoiding the dreaded concussion protocol.
Humanity is ridiculous. Some strange tradition pops up where people slam their heads against each other, and we wonder how we can continue that self-destructive activity, but with less self-destruction.
Football brain damage percentage. Of the 202 brains, 177, or nearly 90%, were diagnosed with CTE. And there was a pattern. Those who had played football longer were more likely to have worse brain damage. Among the former NFL players in the sample, 99% had CTE. SAVE stands for Study of Axonal and Vascular Effects from Repetitive Head Impacts. The major goal is to determine how repeated head impacts from playing contact sports can lead to long-term thinking, memory, and mood problems. The results could highlight strategies to treat and prevent symptoms associated with head impacts from contact sports.
How to prevent symptoms from head impacts? Stop playing football.
I miss my hero dearly, said Jill Arrington, Rick Arrington's daughter and former CBS, Fox, ESPN sideline reporter. It pains me to know his life was cut short by the sport he loved most. As a brain donor, part of his legacy is in this research, and I want all former football players to know how important it is to contribute and sign up for studies, so Boston University CTE Center researchers and their collaborators around the world can learn how to treat and one day cure the disease that devastated our family.
His life was cut short by the sport he loved most? Maybe we shouldn't love things that kill us. It wasn't some random disease that killed him. It was his decision to engage in an activity where people slam into each other. The only way to cure the disease that devastates our human family is to stop engaging in ancestral customs that are harmful to us. Also, what is a hero? Is a hero someone who slams into other people? Do you guys see how we humans so casually throw around words with meaning and apply them to insignificant things like sports? We show up to a big field, we drink beer, we yell, we get angry, we go home. Heroes. But Christ taught us what a true hero is.
Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
Alright, so combat sports and football are off the table. But what about other sports? What about basketball, tennis, golf, volleyball, skiing, running, soccer, etc.? Before I get into these, let's first cover some issues with all sports. The pride, the money, the drunkenness, the immodesty, the gambling, the brawling, and so on. Pride. Athletes have tons of pride, and it's no surprise because they are in an environment and world that is constantly staring at them, showering them with praise, lavishing them with respect and honor, and giving them tons of money. Is it any surprise that athletes' pride and ego swell to an uncontrollable size and they see themselves as gods among mortals? Pride kills the human soul and sends a person into all kinds of bad habits and wrong thinking.
However, do not let the athletic contests that I have allowed be undertaken for the sake of vainglory. Rather, they should be undertaken only for manly sweat. We must always aim at moderation.
If you do choose to casually play some sports with your brothers, do not let ego and arrogance and pride creep in. The way our society is set up, people who throw balls around and press buttons on a controller get tons of money and are put on pedestals, but farmers, who actually do work that keeps you alive, are of no regard. And the photos prove it as well. Have you ever seen promotional photos of athletes and gamers? They're always crossing their arms and they've got this mean look on their faces, and the camera is always loath to emphasize their size and intimidation. This is what is promoted and encouraged in sports: vanity, pride, hostility, rivalry, and contempt. That's what sells. But have you ever seen a farmer crossing his arms and looking at you like you were trash? Money. Athletes get paid extravagant amounts of money for essentially entertaining the masses and wasting people's time. So being a professional athlete is going to be a huge temptation for any man.
But can't I use the money I make from sports for almsgiving?
The ends do not justify the means. Your profession should be upright, and you should not be supporting the pride, vanity, disorderliness, drunkenness, and gambling associated with sports. We are to give to the needy from our righteous labor.
Say unto the people under you what Solomon the wise says, Honor the Lord out of your just labors, and pay your first fruits to him out of your fruits of righteousness, that your garners may be filled with fullness of wheat, and your presses may burst out with wine. Therefore maintain and clothe those that are in want from the righteous labor of the faithful.
Notice how the Apostolic Constitutions state the labor with which you do alms must be just and righteous. Drunkenness and chaos. Most sports events I've ever seen have copious amounts of drinking and chaos, both from the players and the audience.
Since all passionate excitement is forbidden to us, we are barred from every kind of spectacle, and especially from the circus. The spectators fly into rages, passions, arguments, and all kinds of things that they who are consecrated to peace should never indulge in. Next, there are curses and reproaches with no rational cause of hatred. There are cries of applause with nothing to merit them.
When you watch people being violent, it stirs you up. You guys need to understand how God designed the human body to work. When you see something evil, when you hear something evil, when you touch something you aren't supposed to touch, when you move your body in a certain way, all these things disturb your mind and tempt you towards sin. You can't watch people being violent and not be affected unless you have desensitized yourself and made yourself numb, in which case that may be even worse because you no longer have a godly and healthy response to evil like you should. If you can experience evil and not be disturbed, then you have a damaged conscience. Women. Some sports have groups of women that dance in immodest clothing to cheer on the players and tantalize the audience. And even if the sport doesn't have that, if the sport is exhibited in front of people, then the players will be targeted by harlots at a much higher frequency. Who do you think gets attacked by more women? A carpenter working in a warehouse or a successful athlete? I mean, you guys need to understand, some professions like that of athletes are meant to be flashy and encourage vanity, pride, and hostility amongst rival players and teams. It's part of the business model that people who promote sports enjoy creating conflicts between teams. That's what generates a lot of attention. The comeback story, the cocky player who's got something to prove, the battle between two people who put on a show in front of the masses, the loud music, the massive crowds, all the lights on the players, the announcers, the gambling, the confetti, the streamers, the signs, the trophies. All of this encourages foolishness and vanity, which the audience hungrily gobbles up. It's a horrible business that chews people up. I can't outright say that being a basketball or baseball player is a sin, but I don't see how any Christian can get out unscathed and unscarred by such an occupation. It would probably take Abraham and Joseph levels of self-control and restraint to not be heavily corrupted by being a professional athlete. And if men were to be honest with themselves, they would see that they are not Joseph nor Abraham, but Lot. Remember what happened to Lot. He separated from Abraham and went to go live in Sodom, and eventually things didn't end well with Lot. Now, if you're not going to be a professional athlete, there's a lot less danger, but there are still smaller issues to consider. Basketball, baseball, tennis, soccer, volleyball are all acceptable to play with friends, as long as you keep the unity and peace and don't let pride and hostility develop. It can be a good team-building exercise as long as you don't overdo it and don't let any bad feelings develop. However, with some sports like golf, there is a sizable amount of money that you have to invest to do the sport. I found a random website that has some ballpark prices for golf.
Expect to pay $20 to $50 for an 18-hole round. Golf clubs. A beginner set costs around $200 to $500, while professional grade sets can reach $2,000 plus. Golf balls. Prices range from $10 to $50 per dozen, depending on brand and quality. Golf cart rent. Hourly rates, $15 to $25 per hour. Daily rates, $40 to $80 per day. Shoes and apparel, budget $50 to $300 for footwear and proper golf attire. Driving range fees, $5 to $20 for a bucket of balls. Lessons, private instruction costs $50 to $150 per hour, while group lessons are more affordable at $20 to $50 per session.
So, to be more conservative with the numbers, let's say you buy a set of golf clubs for $300 and you buy golf balls for $25. You don't care about proper attire, so you don't buy anything extra. You pay $30 for a round, and you also pay $50 to rent out a golf cart. You go for a session of golf 2 times a month. You do this from the age of 20 to 76. When you do the math, that comes out to $107,845 over your lifetime, not counting buying more golf balls and gear maintenance, using golf clubs that you bought instead. Let's be more conservative. You don't rent a golf cart. You go once a month. You do it from age 30 to 56. You pay $20 per round. That comes out to $6,565 over the 26 years of your life. I understand that you can always find used gear at lower prices, but I want you to count up all the money you spend or would spend on the sport over a year and then over a lifetime and decide how you will explain it to God. You don't have to justify yourself before me, but before the Almighty, so prepare your defense accordingly. My job is to give you brotherly advice and get you as prepared as you can be for the day of judgment. I don't know about you, but I've already wasted enough money on frivolous pursuits. This same consideration goes into all activities that come with equipment costs and a price for admission. Golf, skiing, snowboarding, archery, having a membership to a center for recreation, etc. At the least, I want you to realize that over a lifetime, the money you spend on recreation could add up to a horrific sum. Think about how you can explain all that time and money spent. Now, there are some sports that I would not even consider sports, and I cannot with a good conscience recommend or condone. These are things that don't really work the body, but have a high risk of death, such as skydiving and anything involving a vehicle. The world may call these things sports, but these activities have no improvement to your health, and in most cases, probably diminish your health through accidents. And there's a lower chance of survival when you are dealing with heavy machinery and activities such as motocross and car racing. So, let me give a brief rundown of my recommendations. Walking. Probably one of the best ways to stay healthy and keep your mind active. Walking is great for jogging your mind, losing fat, enjoying the weather, listening to audiobooks, conversing with friends, getting ideas and inspiration, and much more. It's free, easy, available to all ages, and only requires good weather and a will. It's also a great activity you can even do when fasting. When you walk, your body will tap into your fat reserves and help you quickly lose weight. Running. Similar to walking, but more intense, and it may be harder to think when running. Also, if you are running on an empty stomach, your body will eat away your muscles, so I would only recommend running an hour after you've had something to eat. Wrestling. Wrestling is an activity that involves endurance and holding on to your opponent, and is used in the Old and New Testaments as a symbol for our spiritual struggle against evil and for God's blessing.
And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
It's an activity that kids and adults can do, and it very rarely results in injury. Now, I am not referring to WWE-style insanity where people jump and fall on each other or try to slam chairs on each other. That is an example of how Satan really leaves no stone unturned, no good thing uncorrupted. No, I'm referring to the activity where two people grapple against each other, and it ends when one person can no longer move or one person is moved outside of a ring. Basketball, baseball, volleyball, tennis, great activities to do with friends, as long as you don't let ego and hostility interfere.
Playing at ball not only depends on someone throwing the ball skillfully, but it also requires one to catch it dexterously so that the game may be gone through according to the rules for ball.
Swimming, a great activity that works the whole body, but where there's water, there's immodesty. However, if you find a secluded area without women, then I highly recommend it, provided you know how to swim. Surfing, similar to the above, both equipment costs and a greater risk of injury and death. Biking, rollerblading, skateboarding. As I see it, these activities are less effective versions of walking and running, but with a much higher risk of injury and requiring money to buy the gear and protective equipment and maintenance costs. It's not sinful, but I would always recommend walking and running over these. Anything involving motorized vehicles, cars, dirt bikes, ATVs. High cost to buy the vehicles and a much higher chance of injuring yourself and others. It's one thing to drive a car to work or to use a car to deliver things, and another to race people. I would say these activities are completely off the table for Christians who want to give a good account for their lives on Judgment Day, because how would you justify the cost? And what if you injured yourself, or even worse, died through dirt biking? You would have cut off a lot of potential of doing good by engaging in a foolish and reckless activity. I think the church fathers would liken these activities to chariot racing in ancient times, although not as dangerous and resulting in less casualties. Karate, boxing, judo, taekwondo, kung fu, jiu-jitsu, hitting people with swords, staffs, sticks, etc. I would say these are all actively sinful, both because you're simulating warfare, which Christians are forbidden to engage in, and because there's a chance of injuring your fellow man intentionally. It's one thing to injure someone by bumping into them or carrying something and accidentally hitting them, but when you are actually using fake weapons to simulate warfare and you're going through the motions, then you can't claim it was an accident. Putting it another way, if you both have wooden swords and you're doing a mock battle, but you get carried away and hit someone in the head, you can claim it was an accident, but think about the situation. You are trying to go as far as you can by simulating war, but then stopping right before anyone gets hurt. You're doing an activity that is meant to end people's lives, but you try to justify it by saying that you stopped right before the weapon hits the person, or that you're using fake weapons. Whether it's a real sword or a fake sword, God doesn't want us to abuse His creation for injuring ourselves and others. God never intended wood and metal to be used for war. It was the fallen angels who taught people these things.
And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates.
Skiing, snowboarding. These are activities that are only available during cold seasons and only in certain places, so they are very limited. If you go skiing a few times in your life, I wouldn't say it's so bad. But if you spend tons of money on gear or die during an activity, I would say it's a waste. Proceed with caution. Lastly, although this issue is less prevalent in our times, I must still let you know. A lot of the issues involved in the sports in the days of the ancients was that they were performed to celebrate false gods and their birthdays.
Those who come for the sake of beholding the spectacle actually display more of a spectacle themselves. I am referring to when they begin to shout and to leap from their seats. The celebrations of the games are festivals in honor of the gods, for they were instituted on account of their birthdays or the dedication of new temples. Therefore, if anyone is present at the spectacles to which men assemble for the sake of religion, he has departed from the worship of God. We may not join in their feasts, which are celebrated in honor of demons, being partakers of them in their impiety. You are also to avoid their public meetings and those sports that are celebrated in them. Now let me address the kind of performances peculiar to the circus exhibitions, i.e. chariot races. In former days, equestrianism was practiced in a simple way on horseback. Certainly, its ordinary use had nothing sinful in it, but when it was dragged into the games, it passed from the service of God into the employment of demons.
So, all of these ancient sports events were started because of the worship of demons and false gods. We do live in an interesting time period where the Olympics have been resurrected, so to speak, but, needless to say, Christians cannot participate in these events. Now, about many young men's favorite pastime, the gym. Guys, the gym has changed. First of all, it's full of women who are practically naked. Now, most men have not conquered lust, so it's a no-go for them. And for those who have mastered lust, why would you waste time at the gym pumping up your body? I mean, if you are a rare man who has conquered lust, I would assume you are wise enough to have better things to do than hang out at the gym, right? What is the point of conquering lust if you're just going to continue wasting your time? Guys, working at your job gives you the body you need. You don't need to hit the gym to work at any job except being a bodybuilder, which is vanity and sinful.
You will never find pleasure in injurious or useless exhibitions of strength. Certainly you will not regard with approval the strivings after an artificial body that aim at surpassing the Creator's work.
God has given you an adequate body for all types of work, and if you are a little weak, then your work will naturally make you stronger. Your body will adapt to handle the kind of work you do, and you will be strong enough to handle what the job throws at you. If you want something more, then I must ask, for what? It can't be anything except vanity, either wanting to be more aesthetic or wanting to increase your lift numbers. Guys, you need to forget about bragging about how much you can bench press or squat or anything. God doesn't care, Christians don't care, only the most knuckle-headed and vain people care about lifting up heavy things. Leave those embarrassing things in the past. What you want to be praised for is your almsgiving and generosity, how much money you've given to those in need. Get that number high, not your bench press. Now, you never want to let anyone know about your good works, as that should be kept as secret as possible. But when you are generous to others, people will eventually discover it and praise you for it. But let the full extent of your almsgiving and any specific details like time and money spent be revealed by God on the last day. Otherwise, if you brag to others about how much money you spend, not only will people look down on you for bragging, but you will also lose your reward. Now, as far as health is concerned, there is some nuance here. If you have a job where you sit around a lot, it can be beneficial to exercise to keep yourself in shape. There's nothing vain or sinful there, as you want to keep your body in a good physical condition so that you can be useful and effective in physical tasks. But this does not require a gym membership or any expensive equipment. In fact, a while ago, I was doing this thing called shovel glove, where you take a sledgehammer, wrap it with a sweater or blanket for extra safety, and then do a variety of exercises to gain strength. You can buy some cheap barbells and dumbbells and do exercises with those, and a little will go a long way. You don't need to worry about lifting hundreds of pounds, as that will put an unnecessary strain on your body, and working out leads to tons of injuries every year. Some exercises are also more dangerous than others, such as the deadlift, appropriately named. Leave that to the gym bros.
And even for men to prefer gymnastic exercises by far to the baths is perhaps not bad. When this is done without dragging a man away from better employments, it is pleasant and not unprofitable.
Clement tells us that exercises can be beneficial, but we should not dedicate too much time to them. And I think the best way not to dedicate too much time to them is to have them available at your house and not have to waste time traveling to them. Get a pull-up bar for home, get some cheap weights, learn how to do bodyweight exercises like push-ups and Bulgarian split squats, and you'll be okay. So throw away the clamor and vanity of the world, and by doing so, you'll be able to attain onto the eternal blessings, the grace and loving kindness of our Lord Jesus Christ, with whom to the Father, together with the Holy Spirit, be glory, dominion, and honor, now and ever, and world without end. Amen.